Carl Long is perhaps the epitome of a journeyman NASCAR driver. He started to compete in the National Touring Series in 1998 by competing part-time in the Truck Series with Mansion Motorsports. The Cup Series was where Long mostly competed from 1999 to 2008, usually with lower budget teams. In that time, Long qualified for just 23 of 96 races attempted and had a best finish of 29th place at Charlotte in October 2001. Long was suddenly put in the spotlight in 2009. That year, he intended to compete with his own Carl Long racing team part-time in the number 46 Dodge Charger in the Cup Series. They started off the season at the Daytona 500, but Long missed the race after finishing 17th, the fifth highest finishing entry without a guaranteed qualification in the first qualifying race, and his qualifying speed was too slow to fall back on. Long's next entry of the season would be the All-Star race at Charlotte. He would attempt to qualify for the event by participating in the All-Star Open, a last-chance race for drivers not already in the main race to qualify either by finishing in the top two or being voted into the race. In 2008, Long finished 22nd on the lead lap in the Open. During practice for the 2009 event, Long would have an engine failure, meaning he needed a new one for the race. Qualifying for the Open was canceled due to rain, so the starting lineup was determined by the order drivers would have made their qualifying attempts. As a result, Long, who was to be the second attempt, would start second for the race. Unfortunately, Long's team not presenting his car to the qualifying line on time due to replacing the engine after the aforementioned issue in practice meant that Long would have to start at the rear of the field. Regardless, the event was shaping up to perhaps be the most memorable moment in Long's NASCAR career.
We got a car around in the middle of 3 and 4, guys.
Car sliding to the bottom of the racetrack, turn 4, and that's Tony Raines.
And caution will fly.
Raines substituting for John Andretti, who's up at Indianapolis, trying to make it into the 500 for Richard Petty.
There. I don't know what the hell happened there.
Sometimes that's just how the driver feels. He just doesn't know what happened. Uh-oh. Got some contact there.
Yeah, that's Carl Long, the green car.
On the second lap of the race, Tony Raines spun out in the race when under caution. At about the same time, smoke started to come from Long's car. The engine had failed and Long retired with 3 of 40 laps completed. For his effort, Long was credited with 35th last place and received $5,000 in prize money. The fan vote would end up going to Joey Logano. Following the race, NASCAR announced that the motor on Long's car was 0.17 cubic inches over the legal limit. As a result, Long was fined 200 driver points. Team owner Danielle Long, Carl's wife, was fined 200 owner points. At the time, an entry in the top 35 in owners' points standings would get an automatic qualification for races outside of the first 5, which used the previous year's standings. And crew chief Charles Swing was fined $200,000. Additionally, they were each suspended for the following 12 Cup Series races and all NASCAR events through August 18, 2009. Long did not dispute the findings on his engine, but speculated that it expanded in size after heat was released during the race failure or due to normal race use. Additionally, the engine was purchased from longtime engine builder Ernie Elliott, and it was not believed to have been modified by Long or his team. With Swing being unable to pay his fine, that responsibility shifted to the team, which ended up folding, so Long personally would have to pay it. For reference, in Long's previous 10 Cup Series seasons to that point, he had just 2 seasons where he made at least that much in prize money for the season, which does not include any money that would go to his team. With Long being unable to pay the fine, even in the form of paying an increased entry fee for a Cup Series race, which would only make financial sense for a minor operation like Long's for high-paying races like the Daytona 500, where Long failed to qualify in his 6 attempts, he could not compete in the Cup Series. The suspension did not apply to the Sportsman Series or the Truck Series, however. Long would increase his participation in those divisions. In 2010, Long entered 13 Truck Series races and qualified for 10 of them. At Dover, Long got his best finish as a National Series driver, finishing in 11th place for Daisy Ramirez Motorsports.
11th place, Carl Long. We saw him get a lucky dog earlier, just stayed out of trouble, ends up with just on the outside of the top 10.
From 2010 to 2016, Long mostly competed in the Sportsman Series. In that period, he started 92 series races out of 112 attempts. For the most part, Long drove start and park entries, where the team entered with the intention of retiring the car early, while avoiding costs associated with equipment use and/or race damage, and collecting low-position prize money. In 2011, Long entered 29 of 34 Sportsman Series races, for Wickware racing mostly in Fleur-de-Lis Motorsports. This would be the closest Long came to being a full-time driver in any NASCAR National Series season. In it, his best start was 26th at Texas, and the only race Long finished was Bristol, where he was 6 laps down in 26th place. In 2014, Long went back to owning his own cars by forming MBM Motorsports. Then, in May 2017, Long and NASCAR made a surprise announcement. Long would participate in that month's Cup Series race at Kansas. The two sides had come to an agreement to allow Long to compete in the Cup Series, with no proof that Long paid off the fine. Long's MBM entry would be the number 66 Chevrolet SS that the team acquired from H. Scott Motorsports, a team that shut down in the off-season. Sponsorship for Long's entry would come from Veedverks, a Colorado-based marijuana vaping company. This was likely the first marijuana sponsorship in NASCAR history. Making Long's NASCAR return more weird was that the sponsorship would not be allowed. It was due to the fact that Long had apparently misspelled the company's name on the approval form. Veedverks would be removed from the car. With 40 cars entered, everybody entered was guaranteed a starting position. Long started his first Cup Series race since 2006 in 40th place, after not going through the technical inspection to qualify. In the race, Long would struggle for pace, but he did finish the race, albeit 11 laps down in 31st place. He was the last driver running at the finish, though. Long's best race of the season would ironically be at the All-Star Open, once again in an attempt to make the All-Star race itself. There he started in 20th place out of 24 drivers and would finish in 17th place, 1 lap down, and not as the last running driver. The return to the Cup Series for Long would be rather short. He started 2 other races in 2017, finishing 33rd at the Southern 500 and 36th at Martinsville in October, following a crash. Long would also withdraw from the World 600 in Kansas in October that year and do the same at Texas in April 2018. The latter event would be Long's final Cup Series entry. Long would continue to drive partial seasons in the Sportsman Series for MBM through 2020, with his final race coming in October of that year at Martinsville, his only one for the season, where he finished 6 laps down in 32nd place. Through MBM, Long had some success as a team owner. The team qualified for the Daytona 500 in 2018 with Mark Thompson, finishing 22nd, and with Timmy Hill in 2020, finishing 27th. Hill would also give MBM their best finishes in both the Cup Series, 14th place at the 2017 Brickyard 400, and the Sportsman Series, a great second at Daytona in August 2022. At the latter event, J.J. Yaley also finished 9th for Long. Carl Long had a weird NASCAR return. For nearly a decade, he was not allowed to compete in the Cup Series due to not paying a fine, not out of defiance, but simply an inability to come up with the money. Eventually, he was allowed to return, with no indication that he paid it.